If you are planning to vote for Jill Stein because of Harris's and Biden's pro-Israel policy, you are making a terrible mistake that will doubtlessly cost even more Palestinians their lives. And I'm not trying to be a dick. It doesn't give me any pleasure to tell you that, but you need to know that. And I figure I may as well be the one to deliver the message. Let's just start with the big one. You know that your vote for Jill Stein is going to help Trump's odds of winning because we live under the Electoral College system. It's a winner-takes-all approach where you have to win the entire state to get those states' delegates, and there's no path for Jill Stein's victory that ensures she's only going to pull votes from right-wing states. Even in the most unlikely situation where she picks up even a single state, it's going to be a state that would have been going for Kamala Harris. So it sucks, but it is what it is. And we don't even have to treat this like a hypothetical. This is pretty much exactly what happened in 2016. Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin all went to Trump because the margin of votes that Jill Stein picked up, if they were given to Hillary Clinton instead, would have prevented a Trump presidency. And as much as Hillary Clinton sucks, because she is obviously one of the worst presidential candidates we've ever had, I think you also know that the installment of 3 conservative Supreme Court justices by Donald Trump would have been avoided. And as much as that presidential term from Hillary Clinton would have sucked, would not have sucked as much as Trump's did. It's pretty much objective fact if you have any kind of grip on reality at all. You also know that Republicans are worse than Democrats. You might be in denial about that because of all the horrors that we're seeing coming out of Palestine over the last year, but in your heart you know the Republicans are worse than the Democrats. They are not the same, despite what some loud voices on the left might be telling you. Immigrant hate, queer hate, trans hate, these are all bread and butter Republican talking points. Republicans and Democrats are not the same. Yes, they are both right of center, one more so than the other, but it's true, they're both right of center. They both take money from corporate interests. They both work to protect the capitalist class. They both work to protect the American empire. But if you think they are functioning and operating in the exact same way, that they are literally the same, you're delusional. And you know that they're not the same. You're not delusional. It just feels good to say that they are. Feckless liberalism is infinitely preferable to whatever theocratic ethno-state that the Republicans would have us build instead. You also know that Netanyahu, Israel broadly, AIPAC, would prefer a Trump presidency over a Harris one. Netanyahu's escalation of war into Lebanon isn't accidental. He's been screening Biden's calls. Netanyahu has visited Trump personally at Mar-a-Lago this week. Adelson's wife has poured $90 million into Trump's personal presidential campaign. Now, I'm not stupid. I'm not naive. It is abundantly clear that Harris is not anywhere near where she needs to be on the Palestinian genocide situation. But with that said, if Trump and Harris were the same, then why do all these Zionists clearly have a favorite to win the presidency? And since we're on the subject, let's not forget who moved the U.S. embassy into Jerusalem. And let's not forget who ripped up the Iran nuclear deal. Both of these things, which have proved to be incredibly destructive for the stability in the Middle East. Just throwing that out there. You also know that the two-party system in the United States is fundamentally broken, or perfectly designed, depending on who you ask, to protect the class divide. Neither the Republicans or the Democrats have true populist interests at heart, and if we're going to save ourselves, and not just ourselves, but the entire planet from climate change, then something needs to change. You're right. You're right on this point. So, you plan on voting for Jill Stein, not because you think she actually has any real shot of defeating the Electoral College, but to give the Democrats a fat middle finger and to maybe, just maybe, pull 5% of votes nationally to maybe, just maybe, qualify for the public presidential campaign grant money, which might help the third-party chances in future elections. But what does that mean in practical terms? Well, if the Green Party had been successful before, that would have equated to about $20 million, which isn't nothing, but when compared to Donald Trump's $600 million in 2016 or Hillary Clinton's $1.2 billion, $20 million is essentially nothing. That is a drop in the political spending bucket. How many election cycles would we have to go through to improve that 5% figure where the money coming in would even come close to approaching a competitive amount against the Democrats or Republicans? How many years would that take? 16? Being generous? 20? Would the US even survive that many successive Republican presidencies? Because again, the Green Party is not pulling any sort of Republican voter over. They are only pulling from the Democratic leaning voters. So that is what, 16, 20, 24 years of back-to-back Republican presidencies? They stole the election in 2000 against Al Gore. They denied Obama his Supreme Court picks. Trump's presidency, the 3 Supreme Court justices that he was able to install, obviously totally dismantled Roe v. Wade, have attempted to grant their guy sweeping illegal immunity because he's the president. In 20 years, if Trump wins now, do you really think these institutions, what few that still remain to defend the average person, are going to be even capable of withstanding that long? Republican politicians are shameless. They are so transparently drawn to power that they will say and do anything to get it. And we know this is true, and we know that they're particularly emboldened because Project 2025 was not a leaked document. This was a forward-facing, public-facing document for the entire internet to see. It has never been as bad as it is now. And just, again, to remind you, the insinuation that the Republicans and Democrats are the same is ludicrous. It's just ludicrous. I don't know what to tell you. And for the record, that presidential grant money only applies to the presidential race. There's no way they can use that money for down-the-ballot races. And to be honest, maybe that's not really a problem for the Green Party because they only trot out Jill Stein once every 4 years. They don't really make any attempt to fill local offices with Green Party members. They don't make any serious effort to get any Green Party members in the House or the Senate, which they ought to, because even in the event of an extremely unlikely Green Party president, they will be remembered as being the least effective presidential administration in history because they don't have any allies, any candidates in Congress to accomplish any of their policy goals. That might be a recipe for the literal worst, least effective presidential administration in history, except for that one guy who died a month into office because he got some kind of incurable cowboy disease. That might be the number one least effective presidential administration in history, but that's a high bar. It is going to take decades to build a substantial, sustainable third-party movement in the United States. And there's no way to build a sustainable grassroots movement by jumping to the head of the snake, the highest office in the land, and for all the down-ballot stuff, just hoping for the best. That's not how you build institutional power. And this is why Bernie Sanders decided to run as a Democrat instead of an independent, and it's why he decided to endorse his Democratic opponent as opposed to dropping out and picking up a third-party nomination. And I was on the Bernie Sanders campaign, call me biased, but I trust Bernie Sanders' political instincts far more than I do Jill Stein's or Cornel West's. Look, politics is incredibly unsexy. In fact, it's hideous, it's ugly, it's foul work. It sucks. But if I can offer you a bit of a perspective shift that can help you make these political decisions without feeling like you're humiliated or cucked by the Democratic Party, as some voices have been saying. In this election, we are not voting for the candidate that we are happy and supportive of. We are voting for the enemy that we would rather have. And between you and me, I think our odds are much better versus Harris and Walz than Trump and Vance. Yes, this is my impassioned plea. Please, please think about the real reason why you're voting for Jill Stein. And please, please take a moment and consider what I've said.